Okay, I am back. Thank you so much for those of you on the radio. Just had a technical disruption, but now I'm going to begin this second part of my broadcast and live stream. Thank you for hanging in there, those of you may be listening over the radio. So, tonight, what I'm going to be talking about in my continued um, spiritual spill about the challenge about the path to your authentic self is about the threats and challenges that you can meet on that path. So, I'm going to start off with a quick overview of what I discussed in the previous video from last week, which is about your authentic self and why being that matters so much in the 21st century, about stepping onto your path, why it's hard but necessary. Then I'll talk about what are the three most important threats and challenges on the path to your authentic self. And then, of course, I'll leave you with a personal challenge. Now, the quote that I used to announce tonight's broadcast is from Gary Zukov and his most famous and popular book called The Seat of the Soul. And Gary says the illusion holds power over you when you are not able to remember that you are a powerful spirit that has taken on the physical experience for the purpose of learning. Yeah, like really, really cool. And what is that illusion? That illusion is your inauthentic self, the who you really are not. And it definitely will take hold of you. So last week I started talking about your authentic self as a level of consciousness, not so much about what you're doing, because that comes as a result of your level of consciousness. And so it's a level of consciousness where you are willing and able to be present to the existence of your soul. I'll repeat that. Being your authentic self is a level of consciousness where you are willing and able to be present to the existence of your soul. Um, because you can get access to your soul, because you've embraced it, you can push your ego aside and you can choose love over fear. You can believe that you are enough, that you are aligned with your purpose in life, which of course is ultimately to become more loving. I talked about how when you live authentically, you don't try to be liked, loved, to be paid, to be felt sorry for, to be in control of or over someone or something other than yourself, to be approved of by people who don't have the capacity or even willingness to do so. Um, Being authentic means you are self actualized, you're able to love yourself unconditionally, you trust in a greater order and direction that is a loving presence, not a judging presence, and that you trust that more than your ego or anything man made. Um, and that, you're able to really transcend the negativity of your mind, of your existence, of the world, when you are able to be your authentic self. Why is this so important in the 21st century? And I talked about how, the modern invention of the information and communication age has us being able to access emotional pain and the empty pursuit of happiness through material gain, so that we're able to say, you know what, this is not okay. This is not right. Like we're beginning to work with these things. And that's been afforded to us because we've gone from doing the hard labor of the previous centuries to now what is called soft labor, kind of what only people who were wealthy back in the day could do. But more of us now are able to step into that kind of a lifestyle. And so it's affording us time to really consider, am I having my happy endings in life? Am I fulfilled? Is this who I really am? So, just the age we're in and how things are shifting is requiring us to become conscious of and to actually live more authentically. I also talked about how the traditional structure of our institutions have all had their curtains pulled back, whether it's work, religion, education, politics, family structures. We're in question about that because we can see where these institutions have been built out of fear versus love. And so, wherever there is that fear, that negativity in these institutions, we want to work to shift that. And so, part of us being able to do that is to step into our authentic self, to not just go along with the status quo. The other important piece as to why being authentic is so important is because we really have shifted into a higher consciousness. Humanity has. 2012 really happened. It really was a shift in who we are as human beings. This has happened before, it will happen again. But in other words, there are things that worked for us before that aren't working now. And so, as we become more aligned with this evolutionary impulse of the universe, again, we're really talking about, what is real? What is real? What is not real? What works? What doesn't work? And so, we're being asked to really explore that, to become conscious of that. Now, stepping onto your path to authenticity, because that is um, it's a journey. It's a journey, and it's a long one. It doesn't happen overnight. Um, I really think you get called to it at the right time in your life. I think you have to live your unauthentic self so that you can know the difference between what works for you and what really doesn't work for you. So, the age that you shift doesn't matter, but just to know as human beings, ultimately that's where we're going. And so, I want to talk about just that notion of that there's this path to your authentic self and that you step onto it. And I talked about us needing to move forward as human beings because, again, we're evolving to a higher level of consciousness where we can be more loving and more grateful for each other's as humans on this planet, and to also be more loving and grateful for our planet, for our existence, that we're moving toward that. Like I said, the time to do this, to step onto your path to authenticity, nobody can tell you that right time, only you will know. Um, and again, it will happen. It will happen. Or you'll have an awareness that it needs to happen, even if you're resisting, because I think we all kind of resist it. But you'll get the pull. You'll get the pull. And again, it'll be the when it happens, it'll be the right time for you. I talked about why it's so hard to step forward on this path to authenticity. And a big reason is because as humans, we know when you do that, you can't go back. You can't go back, and there are going to be changes and you're going to be challenged, right? So, this is not something that we just do. It's not a game, it's not a toy. It really is very serious, and it's something that you have to take very seriously. So, you do it cautiously. Got to do it cautiously. And one of the reasons why we can do it, especially when we do decide, okay, this is what I need to do, is because we are accepting that there is something more that I need to experience about who I am. And then that you have the faith that you are going to actually learn what that is and be supported in living that. So acceptance and faith is what really, really supports us. So, the personal challenge I gave last week, and I do mean to follow up with a little video on this because I think it's something that we all should be thinking about, is I asked you to imagine that you had been anonymously awarded a monthly income of $10,000 for the rest of your life, that you no longer had to think about or worry about your financial survival. What would you do with your life? And who would you be to yourself and to others? Yeah. So again, to start to think about, because that's one of the big things, and I'll talk about that right now. One of the big things that stops us from being our authentic self is our survival fear. And of course, it is in modernity associated with money. So here we go with the three most important threats and challenges. And let me say this, that being authentic means uncovering, illuminating when you are not authentic. That's how you become authentic. You begin to be able to recognize what ain't really you. So, the threats and challenges that you're going to meet on your path are what help you stay honest about the truth of who you are, even to discover the truth of who you are. So, threats to authenticity, these are generated internally, but with a little help from the external world. Because our core wounds, our ancestral wounds, and the traumas of early childhood and beyond contribute to our wanting to be someone else or something we are not. So, therefore, why we can turn away from the truth of who we are. So, here's the first threat. Number one is the status quo, the current situation of society, of people around you. We all want to be normal. And most of us accept the ideology of modernity that we are here to survive financially or we will die. You ever think about why it's so painful to see a homeless person? Even one that isn't complaining or suffering, they're just kind of laying on a piece of cardboard out in the sun and just with their dog maybe, and they're just like looking like they're just chilling. But why is it so painful for us to see that and easy to ignore? How many times haven't you kind of glanced out of the corner of your eye and like, oh, there's a homeless person, but you really don't look. And you definitely don't give them eye contact. You just like, I just need to ignore that. Well, I believe it's because that is what they are representing is one of our greatest fears. One of our greatest fears is that we are going to be homeless and we are going to die if we don't follow the status quo, meaning if we don't do what we're supposed to do in order to not be homeless and not be dying. Um, the status quo really involves us comparing ourselves to others who we believe are better than us or who need us to believe that they really are better than us or anybody else in the world. It's very easy, our educational system supports this. We don't really like do an analysis of children, like watching them and watching where their gifts and talents are. We make up these standardized tests and say, okay, we need some more doctors or we need some more scientists and we need some more, mathematicians and let's get rid of music. The school doesn't need that. Let's get rid of woodworking. No, nobody needs to be doing that. We throw out all of these other ways in which people express their intelligence and we kind of focus on what we think, here we go, the economy needs. And when we do that, we are pushing people out of their authentic self and what their higher purpose is in life. And so it's very easy for people who are highly intelligent to jump into a job or a situation, make a lot of money, have a big title, do very well, but end up miserable, like just miserable. I can't tell you how many stories I read online or how many people I've met in my work as a healer. People who just are not fulfilled in life, they're not happy. And they're the kind of people you look at and say, oh, they can't be miserable. Look at that house they live in. Oh my God, they got a big bank account. How can they be unhappy? Well, let me tell you, they're just miserable. And so, what does that mean? What that means is if you are not connected to the truth of who you are, to the truth of what you really are supposed to be doing in life, what your real contribution is supposed to be, you won't be happy. Money cannot buy you happiness. The status quo doesn't have the formula for everybody on the planet. It really doesn't. And it can be very challenging to find that. very challenging, but there is a way. And so the challenge to following the status quo is to know that you can make a choice to learn how to transcend the fear of being different, because that's what it really comes down to being abnormal. And it's about making a commitment to learning and really remembering your higher purpose. It's about believing that you came full and with a sacred contract for how you are going to really get to your happy endings in life. Yeah. And that it's all inside of you. It's all inside of you. So that's the challenge with the status quo stuff. Now, clearly, there are people who are very happy with how the system is set up for success and are fulfilled. Okay. So I'm not saying that that's not true. I'm just saying that it's not always true. It's not always true. So really important that we remember that. So again, that's a real threat. That status quo piece is a real threat to being your authentic self. The second threat, the second important one, and the reason why I say these threats are important is because they have a purpose. Okay, they have a purpose. Status quo exists so people can participate in it and then find out, you know what, this doesn't work for me. This doesn't work for me. So that means there is something else. And that's the problem, though, with modernity. When people don't make it through the system, then right away they get labeled as there's something wrong with them, right? Because abnormal is bad. Instead of, oh, there's another way to fulfillment. You know, I have a niece who has never really worked for an organization or a corporation. She has always been an entrepreneur and she's always worked with her hands. She is an amazing massage therapist, an amazing healer. And she, is part owner of the family house that we've had in the family for 50 some years. And, I don't even have a house. Like, she got a house. So I just love that. I think she's just a perfect example of how there is another way to get the things that we need in life without following, the path that seems to be the one of least resistance. Yeah. Yeah. Very fascinating. So here's the second threat. It's about the question of belonging. Like wanting to be normal, we all want to belong. And in the absence of experiencing or believing that we belong, first and most importantly to ourselves, and that's what I call personal sovereignty, and then to who, what, and where we are supported and loved for the truth of who we are, our authentic self. So, in the absence of all that, we will go searching for belonging in all the wrong places. Essentially, this is how somebody joins a cult. If you ever wonder, like, why is it that somebody would put themselves in that situation? Why would somebody want somebody telling them what to do? Well, a lot of it comes from the fact that they may not have felt they belong to their family, to their community. They didn't have that experience of belonging in the way that they needed it. Maybe other people thought, oh, yeah, they belong. But if they are not feeling that, if they're not believing, and like I said, it's really about belonging to yourself, having a sense of self, having a belief that you were born full and that you can learn the truth of who you are without prostituting yourself. And prostituting by giving away your power so that you can belong, And cult is an extreme example, but people do this all the time in corporate jobs. Like, what do you need me to do so that I can make that money, right? And so that whole thing about belonging so that you can feel secure, so that you can feel like you're important. Whatever it is, we all need that. But again, it is such a threat to you being your authentic self. You will swap out the truth of who you are to belong to the club. Yeah, yeah. So here's the challenge: to master ourselves and claim our personal sovereignty, to allow that which is in alignment with our truth, to be revealed rather than engineered. I'll repeat that. To allow that which is aligned with our truth to be revealed rather than engineered. Yeah, that sounds like faith to me, because things aren't always what they seem. Yeah. So again, when we take on, again, wanting to really, own ourselves, love ourselves, trust ourselves, that's how we'll get to authenticity. And then the third, most important threat to becoming your authentic self. And to me, this is the biggest threat of all because it runs so unconscious and so deep. And it is self denial, self hatred. Yeah. Yeah. When you follow the status quo instead of your dream, and you do what is expected of you to be financially and materially successful in modernity, it's really hard to distinguish between loving and hating yourself, right? Because you're going to get accolades if you follow the formula, follow the path. You're going to get accolades. You're going to get told that you're good. You're going to get promoted. All of that's going on, and so all of those things seem to say, I love myself. I love myself. But continuing to follow the status quo despite the struggling and suffering that may be going on for you in a job, in a relationship, with your health, that can be a great indication that you are not loving yourself. You notice how we will look at celebrities and we'll think, wow, that person made it. Oh, they got this big $1 million home. They can travel anywhere in the world that they want. Oh, how wonderful. They got fans. They got people adoring them. Restaurants give them free meals. Like they got it going on. They got the good life. And then you hear about them dying young, or them, ending up losing their money, um, or, just things going bad for them. And you really wonder, like, what happened? What's going on? Well, having fame is not going to make you love yourself. Yeah. That's not how loving yourself comes about. It cannot come from the outside. Loving yourself is an internal job. It's an internal job. Like you've got to go in and you got to face those demons. You got to get at the blocks that your core wound and your ancestral wounds have created for you to heal. It's one of the reasons why you're here. But if you ignore that, and if you think that, money and status and fame is going to make you love yourself, ain't happening. Ain't happening. And we will come up with all kinds of excuses as to why we need to suffer and struggle in a situation, in a relationship, in a career that really isn't bringing us joy. And it can be because it's supposed to bring us joy. So I need to stay in because maybe I'm just not getting it. If I stay in it and suffer a little longer, then I'll finally get it. It could be that kind of thing. We'll come up with that excuse. In a intimate relationship, it can be, I don't want to break up my family. I don't want to hurt anybody. Meanwhile, like I said, any pain that's not transformed is transferred. And so when you're not being your authentic self in an intimate relationship, especially you got children, what are they learning? Oh, that this is what I have to do to be in a relationship. I can't be who I really am. I just got to tolerate, being my inauthentic self. Maybe I get glimpses of it, but no way can I be who I really am. Yeah, yeah. So the thing, of course, is that being a martyr will not bring you happy endings in life or any lasting fulfillment. So like I said, I think the self-denial, self-hatred is one of the biggest blocks and barriers and threats when we are on the path to become our authentic self. So what is the challenge here? The challenge is to open up to learning how to follow and have your dreams come true. Simple, but of course, really hard. If your pain body is telling you, oh, you don't deserve to have your dreams come true. Your mama didn't have her dream come true. Your daddy didn't have his dream come true. Your grandmama didn't have her dream come true. Why should you have your dream come true? Becomes that kind of insanity. Um, Also, when we don't accept that we were born in the exact place, at the exact time, in the exact body, in the exact family, for the purpose of our soul's journey to love, when we are fighting that, okay? Because this is really what our higher purpose for being born is about, is for our soul to get to love, to grow in its love. Okay. So sometimes we got to start off learning what love is not. Yeah. Like that's exactly what we need in order to be able to get to the love. But when we're fighting that, and when we feel like there's something wrong with me because I had such a dysfunctional beginning, then again, you don't want to be your authentic self, because it seems like your authentic self is nothing. So let me see who I can imitate, and I'll become that rather than working on the truth of who I really am. So we have to learn how to open up and believe that we can follow our dreams and that we can have our dreams come true. That we can have our dreams come true. And in doing that is how we begin to learn how to love ourselves, to learn how to love ourselves. Yeah. So here's the personal challenge for this week. I want you to think about which of these three threats are you aware of at this time in your life? Which of these three threats? The status quo following, the question of belonging, the self-denial, self-hatred. Then, which challenge have you or would you consider taking on at this time in your life? Okay. Transcending the fear of being different, mastering yourself and claiming your personal sovereignty, or opening up to learning how to follow and have your dream. And then, who in your life do you believe can support you on your path to your authentic self, and why? And why in both of those previous statements too? Why is this the threat and why is this the challenge? And all of this, of course, is designed to help raise your consciousness, open up your consciousness through this contemplative exercise to look at, where am I at on my path to my authentic self? Now, this personal challenge will be listed in a box below my YouTube video, and I will post it on my Wisdom Walk Radio Facebook page. Great. Wow, we have come to the end of this broadcast. I want to thank you who were out there listening when I had dead air on the radio, or if you were watching the live stream and then it went away, and I had to redo the live stream. Anyway, so much for doing anything live. I do want to plug my book. You can see it over here, and then it's right here. So the Wisdom Walk to Self-Mastery. This is about the use of the Dagara medicine wheel from Burkina Faso, West Africa, and its application to our modern challenges. And so it's an introduction to the wheel, and it's an opportunity for you to learn how you can transcend and transform your emotional pain that is blocking you from your happy endings in life. And it's filled with information about my own journey. It also acknowledges the men that I worked with in the Wisdom Walk to Self-Mastery program in Milwaukee. and the success that I was able to have in helping them learn that they can choose to become the best version of themselves. So it's available on Amazon and also through Kindle at this time. Great. I also want to thank my engineers for tonight because they were just wonderful, keeping everything going during the blip. I'll call it the blip. Shout out to my regular listeners, to Miss Sarah for proving that it's never too late to learn how the ancestors are always working on your behalf. Yeah, Sarah knows about that. Definitely. To all of those of you who have wisdom walk with me and you know who you are, to my family, my spiritual kin, my transformational leadership colleagues, my medicine brothers and sisters all around the world, and those who may be listening in for the first time, to Ms. Carmen Ray, who's got a big birthday coming up this Friday and who's asked me to plug my book on her show, which is so kind of her. Happy birthday to you, Carmen. Love it, love it, love it. And again, thank you all so much. I couldn't do this without your listenership and definitely without your patience for today. Next week, I will continue spilling about the path to your authentic self with choosing love over fear. Again, my Facebook page is Wisdom Walk Radio. My YouTube channel is Wisdom Walk to Self Mastery. And last but not least, I want to thank, especially today, my God, my ancestors, my spirit guides, my loving entities, everything that walks with me, keeps my head to the sky, my feet to the ground, and my heart open to do this important work with and for all of you. Have a fabulous Earth Week coming up. Remember, generosity without expecting anything back, loving yourself for loving others. And most importantly, please remember, you are not disposable. You are divine. Good night now.